get on to our podium picks now. So last week we did our podium picks for dessert foods. We're going back to CrossFit now.
Yes.
And we're going to go with our podium picks, top regional moments, RIP regionals. I feel like I should pour some out for regionals right here.
For the homies.
But look, there were so many great moments in regionals. And man, when we decided we were going to do this, so many just came to mind right off the top of my head that I had a lot of trouble kind of narrowing it down just to, 5, because we're going to give a Spirit of the Games and Dark Horse award as well.
Do you want to do the Spirit of the Games and Dark Horse first? That way we finish.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. And I started last week.
Okay.
So I will give you the honor of starting with and you can do both at the same time, your Dark Horse and your Spirit of the Games.
Okay. All right. My Spirit of the Games. I'm going to give it to Cole Sager in the 2016 West Regional Finale.
Love that one. That's a great choice.
So that workout was, I believe, thrusters and legless rope climbs.
Yes.
Cole Sager coming into that event was behind Adam Davidson, Mitch Wagner, and a few others for the final spot.
Mm-hmm.
He had more than 30 points he had to make up on that final event. Now, mind you, the year prior in 2015, Cole Sager was also on the outside looking in, going into the final event as well. I believe I have the numbers here. In 2015, the West Regional for the men, this is how close the race was. It is one of the most insane races. Cole Sager wins that event, jumps back up, ends up finishing second from being outside looking in, between second and seventh. 6 points.
Whoa.
6
That's
points.
what was so cool about regionals, was that drama just going into that last event and just trying to figure out who needed to do what in order to get into the final 5. And yeah, man, there's so many intense moments there.
For the Wild West, it was the Wild West.
Yeah, that was a great regional.
And so for the second year in a row in 2016, Cole Sager wins the finale yet again. Unfortunately for Adam Davidson, he finishes 25th. Mitch Wagner finished 35th. He catapults both of them. Cody Anderson was ahead of him too. He leapfrogs him, and he makes the 5th and final spot in that workout to make his way back to the games yet again. And for Spirit of the Games, I always feel like there has to be there's always that puncher's chance for some people.
Right.
And Cole Sager exemplifies the down but not out type mentality.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how far he can drop, he's always going to come back fighting. And I think a little bit of the CrossFit spirit is really exemplified by that in his performances. And 2016 capped that off. And oddly enough, he got to do it yet again at the games that year after the ranch, because he was dead last.
For 2 events. Yeah.
And wound up finishing in the top 10. So that was my Spirit of the Games.
Okay.
Was Cole Sager. My Dark Horse candidate. And the reason I picked this is because I don't think people truly appreciated how badass this was. Sam Briggs at the 2015 Atlantic Regional. Sam Briggs goes out, first time moving over to the Atlantic. She's in the United States. Finishes second at the Atlantic Regional behind Emily Bridgers. Emily Bridgers wins. But Sam Briggs puts together a couple of event wins, has some really strong performances, and everyone's starting to wonder, wow, she finished second still, but, is she still at her top? Sam Briggs does an interview haphazardly at the end of the regionals and reveals that she did the entire regional weekend with a broken foot.
Yes.
A broken foot.
Broken foot. So there you go. And listen, I've always had the theory that Sam Briggs was a robot that was sent by Skynet from the future to the past to kill Sarah Connor, and she just stuck around to do CrossFit.
Because in event three, which she almost finished, and she finished top 3 in, was a chipper that had 100 burpee box jump overs. Yeah. Or 100 box jump overs.
No big deal. Just shut off the pain receptors of that area of my body.
Broken foot.
That's unbelievable. That's a good one. Those are 2 really good ones.
That was Sam Briggs isn't human. No. She really isn't. And yeah. And for me, that was I think that was one of the low-key Dark Horse most impressive things I've seen.
Yeah, that was awesome. Okay, my Spirit of the Games.
Good ones.
There have been I don't want to say very few, but we don't get a whole lot of jump out your seat, oh man, that was crazy moments in CrossFit. I mean, we do when we do big lifts and things like that, but very rarely, in the course of an event. like a chipper or something. Do we see that? I mean, we have like cool races and stuff that get us
Yeah.
hyped up. But I remember, and I want to say it was 2013, so I wanted you to check me on that. I think it was 2013. It was just a rope sprint event where you ran down the floor, you did like a legless rope climb, and you ran back, you moved your chest piece.
2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2014, this is and I believe this was in Jacksonville, Florida, is where we had this regional. And Easy Muhammad comes out and sprints down the floor. And, you're watching people like just jump up to the rope and they're pulling like 3 or 4 times and they get up. Like, takes off, jumps so high that he is able to like pull once and touch and then he's off. And I remember the first time I saw it, I jumped out of my seat. I went, no way. And it was just like watching him just back and forth, jump, touch. I mean, it wasn't even a challenge for the guy. And I think he ended up making the games that year. And
he just missed.
But
yeah,
so it's 2013 he made it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was just one of those moments where I like jumped out of my chair. I was like, man, that guy got some hops.
That's a great pick. I remember that similarly thinking like everyone would be like, oh my God, you see what Easy did?
Yeah.
And this is when Easy really started to make a name for himself,
Right.
because he was one of Rich's training buddies / lifting partners, because he went to Tech.
Yep.
And we'd seen Easy like throw around some heavy weight.
Mhm.
It's like, does he have quite the game's caliber skill set yet? And I just remember when he went up and jumped and did it the first time, and he like almost like he was slapping the backboard, just boom right on the back, and just like he floated down. Everyone just kind of looked around and were like, what?
It wasn't even fair.
Yeah.
Was not even fair. So that's my my spirit of the games. My dark horse is a guy who had been trying to get to the games like every year since, I think 2010, but I think he was he's been at every regionals. He went to the regionals every year that we had regionals. And that's Jason Smith. And in 2017, he finally got himself in, and to see how happy he was and to be able to accomplish that was pretty incredible, because you could not help but cheer for him at that point, because he had been there so many times and been close and just couldn't punch his ticket. And then finally in 2017, he kicks the door down, and it was just a lot of fun to see. And I just think that kind of moment just sort of exemplifies what was cool about the regionals, is when you would have those triumphs that people would be able to celebrate and then move on to the CrossFit Games. Like, all the hard work paid off, and he got in. Another one I was thinking about is when I think it was Frederick Agidius when he got in. Remember how happy he was? But unfortunately, that came at the expense of Lucas Hogenberg. So I didn't want to do that. But those are my spirit of the games and my dark horse. So now we're going to go three down to one, and I'll let you start with your third place.
Sure. That Jason Smith pick was great, because 8 years in the making for him to qualify. And then top 10 that year, crushed the games. Well. All right. So I followed a similar thought process for your spirit of the games for my third place one. And there's very few times where I hear of a result and I immediately discredit because I don't think it's physically possible. And this is what happened with my third place pick. And this is Dan Bailey in 2012 in the Diane workout. Now, Diane that year was the opening workout of 2012 regionals. Yep. This was before there was live coverage.
And
right?
We were at this one in 2012. This was the first time I ever worked for CrossFit.
Yeah,
and then remember, just to keep this in perspective, like, there was no running across the finish line.
Yeah.
There was just, right.
Yeah. And so I didn't actually get to go to that event. I was on a different regional team. And so a lot of times you heard of things through word of mouth. Right. And I remember a handful of people threw down some like low twos, some really impressive scores in Diane, and everybody being excited to see what was going to happen with Rich Froning, talking about Rich Froning do it. Can't wait to see Rich Froning do, see him do Diane. And then all of a sudden, everyone just like stopped and went, "Did you see what Dan Bailey did?" And we're like, no, what are you talking about? Like, he did a 135 Diane. And everyone was like, shut up. No, that's not real. No, that's not real.
Yeah, that's impossible.
Yeah. And everybody ran to the leaderboard, looked down, and saw a 135, a time that I thought was not physically possible in Diane, on the leaderboard. And soon it was like that was what grew the legend of Dan Bailey as a sprinter. And then the video circulated. I remember got sent through everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, check this out. And the combination of seeing how fast he really sent it, and then at the end, and you would never see this now, right? Dan celebrating, and then I think his judge gave him a hug.
Yeah,
afterwards.
He did. Yeah,
because the judge was like,
showed him the time, and then
was like, what? What just happened? Oh my God! It was, it was one of those ones. It reframed what I thought was physically possible for that workout, and I just remember the lore of it happening and everybody being in disbelief, and it was just phenomenal.
Yeah, my third place goes, I think, kind of along with your Spirit of the Games one. But
yeah,
for me, when you have a cool moment that you get to see, and then you mix that with like a great call or coverage, like that's what makes something super memorable. So I think back to, and again, you're better with the dates than I am. I want to say it was 2016, and it was Con Porter, who I believe was on the outside looking in the Pacific Regional going into the final event. So he needed a huge performance. He wasn't that far out, but he needed to like really do well. And it was that, same event that Cole Sager, thrusters and rope climbs.
Yep.
And he just lights the thing on fire and goes out full send and is able to maintain it. And I'll never forget his final rep, and he's making that trip down the floor to the finish line. He's just celebrating, getting the crowd pumped up, and he's fired up. And Jeremy Austin, Con Porter, you legend. And it was just, I mean, I was like, well, it was perfect. Yeah, it was awesome. So that kind of just like clutch performance mixed with a great call. And what was so cool, what I loved about the Pacific Regional is that it really had its cool local feel. We had Australian commentators down there, and Jeremy's fantastic at what he does. And, he always brought like a certain flavor to it. And, I don't know if anybody in North America could have pulled off that call and made it sound as good as Jeremy did, because it's just not really our style a little bit. But the way he did it was fantastic, and I will always remember that moment with that call for regionals. So that's my third place.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
The minute I saw it, I didn't want to like watch it. I didn't want to like have the picks be influenced. And then I saw that, I was like, oh, of course, because it was perfect. It was so authentic, you know. All right, my second place one, and now I see that it's a shared pick, but obviously, Julie Foucher in 2015.
I mean, that's got to be on the list. Like, you cannot leave that off.
For context, obviously, Julie Foucher is coming off of. So a lot of people may not have remembered. Julie Foucher finished second at the games in 2012.
Yes,
behind Annie Thorisdottir. The rumor mill was always about like, when is Julie gonna finally put it together and probably win this thing? Obviously she's great endurance, highly skilled, maybe didn't have some of the top end strength that she needed. She skips 2013. She's in medical school. The demands of school were too high. Comes back in 2014. After the first day and a half of competition, I thought she was going to win.
Yeah. She looked unbeatable that year.
She put up like a super heavy overhead squat, did great the first day, and everyone was like, uh-oh, this could be her year. Granted, had a couple of bonks and a couple of tough calls. I remember specifically the muscle up biathlon being one of them, and finishes on the podium in third. So there's a lot. And then right after that, she announced that 2015 would be her final year. Mm-hmm. So everybody was really excited to see Julie Foucher in her final year. What does Julie Foucher emptying the tank for one final year look like? And by all accounts, she was cruising towards another qualification, maybe even winning that regional. And then disaster struck. Unfortunately, she tore her Achilles on the box jumps for the box jump overs for that chipper that we had talked about with Sam Briggs earlier. I mean, I can't say how many times we saw that highlight, and you just knew you're heartbroken, right?
Yeah.
I would say Julie Foucher was one of the true CrossFit sweethearts, the one that you'd never heard a bad word about her, and that was the midpoint of that day. Mm-hmm. And then the individuals had to come back, and they had to do a 2-part workout, a 1-rep max snatch, and then a handstand walk. And Julie came back out onto the floor in a walking boot that isolated, didn't show her. She snatched the barbell, I think, just empty.
I think she just did. Yeah, she did just to get a score.
Yeah, just to get a score. Basically did it one-footed. And then lined up and did the handstand walk. Completed it. And it was one of those moments where everybody understood that this was the last we were going to see Julie Foucher. And no one would have blamed her for, after that happening, her withdrawing, not doing any part of the competition from there on out. But she decided that she wanted to give something back and have something more be her final moment. And there's the shot, and it's iconic as far as I'm concerned with the tracking shot with her as she walks off the competition floor waving. She gets a standing ovation. She's in tears. Basically everyone in there and people back home are in tears watching her walk off. And like, it was Julie's goodbye. And man, I think it just really exemplified the heart and persona of her. And in researching this, it made me realize that, like, because of that injury, we never got to see Julie against Sarah, against Tia.
Yeah.
We only got to see her against Katrin in 2012. We never got to see her against Pete Katrin.
She's kind of like the Bo Jackson of CrossFit. You know, there's huge just potential, and then injury derailed her, and you never got to see kind of what she was fully capable of. But I mean, great athlete, even though didn't have the longevity. Yeah,
and she had and you know, obviously she had bigger aspirations for being a doctor and other things as well. But yeah, it's always kind of like, man, I wonder what would happen.
Right. There's always that what if with her.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's a great one. My second place is going to be back in 2014. This is the battle at the Central East between Rich Froning and Scott Panchik. Now Froning comes in, he's looking for his fourth straight at the games. You know, Panchik is his up and comer. Maybe Panchik can push him a little bit. And they were actually, I looked it up, they were separated by just 1 second, not once, but twice in that regional. And there was that great, the great shot. And I think Chase Ingram and I think it was Bill Grundle were calling it, where they're doing the burpees and they both like jump over on the final time and hit it almost the same time. And that was one event. And I think Rich edged him out. And then there was another sprint event that they were separated by 1 second, but they were like first or second, I think the first 2 or 3 events. And it was just awesome to watch them go back and forth because, look, at the time, and hindsight, we were wrong about this, but it looked like, you know, Rich was untouchable going in. Like, he's going to murder everybody. And then when Scott came in, it was like, oh, maybe it won't be as easy for Rich as we think it's going to be because he just got challenged by Scott Panchik. Now, granted, Rich had a couple hiccups at the games, but winds up righting the ship and getting his fourth straight. But it was cool to see that battle because we were so used to watching Rich just run away with the Central East, and to see, you know, Scott Panchik. It's the last time I really remember someone going truly like toe to toe with him and being a little bit of a threat.
Yeah,
you know, and that was it was just a great competition to watch. I'll never forget them, you know, hopping on the mat at the same time, and the reaction from Bill and Chase and the crowd, like the reaction from the two of them was a great moment.
I think it speaks to the moment when rules are created around whatever happened there. And, and that one of those workouts was the Nasty Girls 2.0. If you remember, muscle ups, pistols, and hang cleans.
Yeah.
And Rich and Scott were going through those final hang cleans.
That's right.
And with Scott put his down forward and jumped over. Rich finished his last one, popped it over his back and dropped the bar behind him and beat Scott to the line. It was like one of those, still gotcha. And from there on out, it was like the Froning rule. You have to set it down in front of you.
Got to jump over your bar.
Which was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was such an epic battle.
All right, so now it's time for your number one, the gold medalist here of regional moments for Tommy Marquez.
Yes. So this moment, and there was the nail in the coffin for this moment was that it may or may not, I can neither confirm or deny, that this was the only time that I have seen Pat Sherwood tear up.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So, yeah. Anything that brings that cold-hearted, just...
empty shell of a human.
Empty shell of a man. The Grinch's heart grew 3 times that day. So in 2012, and you know, context is everything for me in this one too. And so in 2011, going into 2012, Chris Spieler isn't a legend, right? He's finished, you know, on the podium basically every year since the games had started. He was the only athlete still competing that had ties to 2007.
Right.
So he at the time he was CrossFit's Iron Man. He was also, the David versus Goliath comparison.
Yeah, he was the guy everybody could relate to.
He was the people's champ.
Yeah.
Had finished on the podium multiple times, come so eerily close to winning. And in 2002, which was so far outside what we had imagined, right? It was almost like Spieler is as much the CrossFit Games as the CrossFit Games are. It's going to happen. But then you looked at what was on tap for the final day was a 3-part chipper. And then the workout before that was a snatch ladder. Now, anyone who knows Chris Spieler knows that he's not the heavy lifter. It's 150 pounds soaking wet most times. But always struggled to put on weight. The snatch event meant that he was going to dig himself into a bigger hole. And again, this is before live coverage, so it was all, oh my God, what's the deal with Spieler? Is he going to make it? What's going to happen? Spieler PRs his snatch. I think he hit so the big barbell at that point in time for the games in the snatch ladder was the 225 barbell.
Yeah.
So, excuse me.
Bless you. Allergy season here in Northern California. One more. All right.
Bad news travels in threes. So excuse my allergies, but he comes out, hits the 225, and I think he hit the 235 as well.
I remember
PR'd his snatch, or maybe it was 230.
He came up with a performance that was certainly unexpected for him at that point.
He hit that snatch, and he willed that snatch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go back, you can watch the highlight. It was one of those ones where he didn't catch it clean. It was kind of maybe soft in the shoulder. He just willed it. And that gave everyone hope.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God, that was what he needed. That put him back in contention. He's back in the hunt. And then I remember, because it was the Southwest Regional and it happened later than all the East Coast events, everybody was not tuned in over live stream, phone calls. We had people on the ground dictating what was happening to us.
And this was not publicly available. This was Justin Judkins calling, or we called Justin Judkins on a conference line, and everybody got in this one little room and listened to him describe the action while this was going on.
Yes. And I mean, it's hard to describe unless you were there, like it felt like I wasn't around when War of the Worlds came out on radio, like when everybody huddled around the ham radio to listen to what happened. But I imagine that's what it was like having this thing that just like rocked your world as Spieler proceeded to climb back, to claw his way through this workout and finish the chipper, which a lot of people didn't finish that workout that year, and secure his ticket back to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And having that build up and hearing it over the radio, that Spieler's comeback was like the moment of the year for me. And it was almost like you couldn't have written a better script. It was like the original comeback kid. Like, here was Spieler down and out. By no means should he have snatched that much. Should he have been in contention? And he found a way to get back to the games. Pat Sherwood was crying, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
That was my first time where I had worked for CrossFit, because we were doing the regional videos too, and they wanted me to help out with that. And I just remember like not fully grasping the enormity of what he meant to the community until I was in that room with, Ro, Pat, and you, and I think Megan Mitchell was in there, a couple other people who who were helping us out, and everybody was hanging on Justin Judkins' every word and cheering audibly. And then when he finished, I mean, people went nuts, and it was like the moon landing.
Yeah, because he had to fight off Zach Forrest, I have it up now, and Matt Hathcock, both individual games athletes in their own right. Matt finished third in the snatch that morning. Zach, unfortunately, kind of punted it into the stands, so that kind of pulled him out. So Spieler jumped him on that workout. And then going into the finale, Spieler needed some help and to beat Matt Hathcock, because he was 5 points behind him. That was the points per placing. So it was like, it's going to be tough to make up 5 points here. Spieler finishes second. Hathcock finishes 12th. And it was like this, oh my God, he did it.
And
Man,
I actually talked to Chris about this moment on the Two Brain podcast I do, where I interviewed him, and he was saying that he actually went up to Zach Forrest beforehand. He's like, "Look, man, you don't let up. Like, I don't want you to, because you're out of contention. I don't want you letting me do anything. You know." He's like, "You do you." So, I mean, that was admirable on Spieler's part.
and Zach Forrest won that event.
Mm-hmm.
He won that event, but crazy. It's like, now Pat Sherwood will deny every moment that he cried, but
no, it was big though.
Sources say, scholars maintain
that a tear, although it was allergy season, so maybe he was just
a single black tear.
That's a great one, man. That you can't go wrong with that. My number one is, we're going to repeat ourselves a little bit here, but is Julie Foucher from 2015. I won't recap it like you did. You said everything there, but I remember after the handstand walk, she actually beat some people.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things where you are totally denying reality and trying to talk yourself into something that is not possible. I remember looking at the leaderboard and looking at the events that remain and thinking, okay, well, if she does just this, she might be able to squeeze in and finish fifth, and maybe her heel miraculously gets better and she's all of a sudden back in the game. So there's still a chance here. There's still a chance. And I am someone who is very immune to that thinking, but at that moment I wasn't. I'm like, let's make this happen. Let's get Julie to the games, because, like you talked about, I wanted to see her sell out and possibly wind up on top of the podium at the CrossFit Games. And she just didn't have an opportunity to do that. But I will always just remember the reaction from the fans, the reaction from Julie, and the fact that, I admire her for sticking to her. This is my last year. I think a lot of athletes would have had that happen to themselves and be like, no, I'm coming back. But the fact that she was able to stick to that and say, you know what, this happened. I'm not the way I wanted to go out, but I accept it. And now it's time to move on to, other things that I want to do in my life. I certainly admire her for being able to stick to that. And that moment just, to me, just transcended the sport, because it was the one time where, it wasn't about who won the event or who performed the best. It was just about this incredible performance and a community rallying behind one person. Yeah. And I will never forget that moment. I wish I could have been there, but Jeff Brightwell did a fantastic job of calling it.
Yeah. I'm trying to look it up right now. Yeah. Julie Foucher still finished 8th.
Right.
She finished, what is it? She did it in event 3. She finished the handstand walk, took 11th. She snatched 85 pounds on one leg. She finished 8th in the event 6 chipper, or event.
Gutted it out.
Yeah. Finished 8th. And I remember there actually being like, could she do this?
Yeah, no, that was the thing. It's like I remember like coming up with scenarios where, hey, if this and X, Y, and Z happen, with all the yarn attached, everything, like maybe she can get in, knowing full well that with that injury, like there's no way, even if she were to luck herself into it, like she's going to be able to compete in any effective capacity at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
So
it's like you had the full conspiracy theory wall up, like Charlie Day trying to find Pepe Silva in Always Sunny.
Yep, exactly right. All right, so those are our podium picks. Top regional moments. I know there are a ton out there that we miss, as every week with our podium picks. So we'd love to hear from you guys to find out what you think the best moments from regionals were.